Here's how I made a massive open world for my game. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to smash that like button and hit— Nah, I'm only joking. Well, I did use quad trees, but fuck me, was it not a simple task. Right, so what are quad trees, I hear you so conveniently asking? Well, they were conceived in the 1970s as an efficient way of storing data into a tree structure. This is done with a series of nodes, where each of these nodes can either have no children or 4 children, hence quad trees. One example use of quad trees is in a lossy image compression system. So instead of storing pixels, you store these nodes. And around the area of the image where there is more color detail and more color variation, there will be more nodes. And where there is less color detail and color variation, there will be fewer nodes, thus taking up less space in memory and on disk. Right, so how does this apply to a 20km square world then? Well, you can use quad trees to generate mesh nodes for the terrain and use the player's position as a detail point for the system. This means that each node will be a terrain chunk that can behave however you want it to behave. It could be height map terrain like I've got it, or it could be voxel terrain, or it could be whatever you want. But the whole point of using quad trees for this is to generate more detail around where the player is. So in the tree, the closer the node is to the player, the more it will be recursively split until it has reached some minimum size that you'd have to define yourself. So for me, it's 20 by 20 meters. Altogether, this leads to a very well optimized LOD system for the terrain. Combining this with procedural generation as I've done, you can create near on infinite worlds with draw distances that stretch all the way into the horizon. Now, if you didn't understand much of that, don't worry, nor did I when I first heard it. I just started programming and hoped for the best, to be honest. But the reason I decided to go for this technique is because it's very common in the game industry. It's used in AAA projects such as Battlefield 3 and all the way down to little mods such as Distant Horizons for Minecraft. And all that sounds well and good in theory, hopefully, but how did the actual implementation go? Well, about that. Right, what was going on? Where's the bloody terrain? But after some fiddling and some questionable code, I got it working. You can see here in wireframe mode that the mesh detail is concentrated around the player's position, and if I move the player around you can see the mesh nodes updating to fit. I've sped it up a bit because, again, it's quite a big world and we could be here forever. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of optimizations I could do to this system, but I'm pretty happy with it for now. A quick thing to keep in mind is this is actually the first thing I did in the project. The folder the project in is even called Quad Tree Test. A much more recent feature I added was the Biomes system for this version, which is 0.10. I wanted my Biome system to behave similarly to how Minecraft's system works, where there are 2 noise maps, one representing rainfall and the other temperature. Although I decided to cut out the temperature map because Sundermead is supposed to be on just one island, so the climate realistically wouldn't be that different throughout. Instead of temperature, I'm just using the terrain height as a secondary map, which allows me to create specific mountain biomes where I intend to spawn monsters such as trolls which will be guarding loot. And I decided to write a little GUI for the Unity editor to help me map out how the biomes will fit into the world. So here we are in the Unity editor. You can see it's just a small 2D grid that maps out how the biomes will be placed by some arbitrary height value with a max height of 3600. And the rainfall value between 0 and 1. So I can click on a biome and it'll open its details, so I can change its name, its ID, where in the height it will fall. So you can see the graph updating as I change that. And I change that, make it so it's less. And I can add another biome. Oop. Move that there. And then we have boreal forest. Hi. And that's how simple it is to make a little biome. At the moment, biomes consist of just some trees and then a grass color which affects the grass blades and the ground. In future, I want to implement more biome spawns though. So like I mentioned before, chests in the mountains, but also unique plants for the biomes, which will also give unique drops and so encourage exploration. Now I'm pretty happy with my solution for the grass coloring, so I thought I'd quickly share it with you. So as I mentioned, each biome has a separate grass color, but how can I get these colors down to the GPU for rendering? Well, there are a few ways, but the way I did it was to store the index of the biome in each vertex. I do this using the UVs, specifically the V coordinate. I used that one because the U coordinate is already being used to store which state the vertex is in, so whether it's tilled, watered, planted, whatever. I then generate 1 by X texture, where X is the number of biomes I have, and then each pixel in this texture represents the biome color at that pixel's index. I can then just sample this texture in the shader and voila, grass colors. Next, I decided it might be a good idea to implement a third-person view, so that's what I did. I did this because Sundermead is a sandbox game, so I think it's good to let players have control over how they view their player. Luckily, due to how everything was already set up, this was really easy to do, and I had it done in about 2 hours. Right, so here we are. You can switch between first and third person just by pressing C. And right now the player will always look at where your camera is facing, but in the future I want to implement a more traditional third person view where you can orbit your player. So you can see that you can do everything that you can in first person in third person. So just dig the ground here. Yeah, till the ground. I will water the ground. Yeah, I think it's pretty nifty. I also finally added a very important item to the game. This item is Life Essence, which has a 5% chance of being dropped when you kill an enemy. The idea is that life essence is what all living things require to live. Some of the NPCs in the game will refer to it as the gift of the gods. The reason it's so important is because it will allow players to craft automated items such as the tap, which acts basically as a sprinkler and will automatically water your crops for you each morning. To go along with this chance to drop system, I also implemented a luck buff, which increases the chance of rare drops based upon the buff's value. You can increase its value by sacrificing items to these great big trees here. I call them grove trees. In Germanic paganism, they used to see groves as sacred, and so I'm manifesting that belief in this system. Alongside these grove trees, I also added a new late game item called the battle axe, which is a two-handed axe and can be used both in combat and to chop down trees. The whole point of this item is that it allows you to chop down these grove trees where the normal axe can't do that. Doing this has a trade-off though, because chopping down a grove tree will yield a lot of wood and life essence, but there can only ever be 3 of these trees in your world and they won't regrow either. I've also added a short quest line for Chayada, the NPC I added in the last update, which consists of quests to get upgrades, friendship points, and finally bring over the next person to Sundermead, although I won't reveal who that is just yet, so you'll have to stick around for the next video to find out. And finally, I added a little brightness slider. I did this after the little fiasco of the last video. If you're unaware, the Minds gameplay video is currently a re-uploaded version because the first one, it turned out, was really dark even though it appeared totally fine on my monitors. Right, so I think it's about time I started really testing Sundermead properly, so if you're interested in testing the game, join my Discord, there's a link below, and send me a private message on Discord and I'll get a key sorted out for you. And thanks very much for watching. Like I said, I've got a Discord server, so if you want to keep more up to date with the game, you can go and join it. And I've also got a Steam page, so it'd be great if you went and wishlisted it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.